Welcome back to Legitimate Targets, everybody. I hope you're all having a great day. We've got a lot to get into tonight on our episode about Syria and what is going on with the new Al-Qaeda-governed country. Yes, they have finally created their Islamic State, if you will. And, well, everything that the Al-Qaeda, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham defenders told us would not happen is now actually happening in Syria. Christians are fearing for their lives. Alawites as well, religious minorities are being persecuted. The Al-Qaeda government is carrying out acts of terror, war crimes, and they are even defiling and desecrating the grave of Hafez al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad's father and the former president of Syria. I'll say one that was a lot more crafty than Bashar himself. So let's get into it. We're going to be talking about what exactly this new Al-Qaeda government is doing, how the mainstream media and Western governments are responding. You won't be surprised, they're providing them with a lot of support, and also how this new government is actually engaging with its neighbors, like Israel, for example. And lastly, we'll discuss what this new Al-Qaeda government is actually planning to do moving forward with their efforts to revitalize and reform Syria, okay? So let's get into it. First of all, I do want to clear the air here. I know I'm calling it the Al-Qaeda government. Why am I calling it the Al-Qaeda government? Well, it's a very simple reason. The new government in Syria is being referred to as the Syrian Salvation Government. Now, the Syrian Salvation Government is being headed up by the leaders of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. The leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Mr. Mohammed al-Jolani, as you are all probably well aware by now, even Bill Maher has covered it, or no. What's his name? The other guy, the guy had the show on Apple TV. He gave, Jon Stewart, he gave the award to the Ukrainian Nazi at Disney World that one time. Jon Stewart even covered that, you know, these guys are Al-Qaeda, they're ISIS. I did a story the other day talking about Mr. Jolani and how previously he actually led Al-Qaeda. He was a leader in ISIS in Iraq. When their mission and operations failed there to create an Islamic State and they were in prison, they came to Syria and now they are victorious in Syria. And they're trying to rebrand themselves at the behest of Western governments, of course, trim the beard a little bit, get rid of the ISIS patch, put some new logo there, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham patch, Turkish patch, maybe, Turkish flag. This is what they're doing, but they're all Al-Qaeda, they're all ISIS. This is where they come from. This is where their ideology stems from. And, well, they really don't try to hide it all that much. It's quite obvious to anyone who has at least 2 working brain cells. But anyways, there's a lot of people online who said Bashar al-Assad is the worst dictator on the face of the earth. Personally, I do have problems with Bashar al-Assad. Now, he was fighting the imperialists, so I said, you know, let's support him in his fight against the imperialists, but I do have very big problems with Bashar al-Assad. My problems with Bashar al-Assad are not the problems that you hear from a lot of people online. You know, they say he's this brutal dictator, he's an authoritarian tyrant, he's killing everybody. My problem with Bashar al-Assad, frankly, is that he didn't take out enough of the terrorists. Yes. You know, people online are saying, he's killing innocent people, he's doing... No, my problem is that he didn't neutralize enough of the threats that were plaguing his country. And judging by the events that have unfolded over the past several weeks, I think I was extremely vindicated in this exact belief, this view. Now, these people that are saying that Assad was this brutal dictator, so on and so forth, they're the same people that were saying that Al-Qaeda is not going to, you know, kill any innocent people. Al-Qaeda, their new government, they're not going to do anything bad to the religious minorities. They're going to respect order and discipline, and they're going to create a new, beautiful Syria. Syria is going to look like Saudi Arabia when they take over. Well, here are the facts, and I still haven't decided. I don't think I'm going to put the videos overlaid as to what they're doing, but I'll include screenshots of exactly what is happening, okay? Because if we put the full videos of what these Al-Qaeda terrorists are doing now that they've taken over Syria, this video is going to get banned. It's going to get deprioritized in the algorithm. But I will say, I'll include screenshots of everything that they're doing, which I'm going to discuss right now. And I'll also say that I have tweeted everything out mostly from my personal account. Some of the videos I included on my legitimate targets account for our show. So you can actually find the full videos uncensored on my X account. And you'll see with your own two eyes that, yes, this is real. It's not like the Zionist propaganda when they say, oh, Hamas is beheading babies and there's no video that exists, 1.5 years after October 7th. No, there's actual videos of all of this stuff, and I've included it. In fact, all of the screenshots I'm going to include for you right now are from videos that I posted on my X account or the Legitimate Targets account. So without further ado, let's actually take a look and see what this new Al-Qaeda government is in fact doing. For starters, we can see this screenshot from a video I posted in which Christians in Syria were captured by the new Islamic terrorist government and they were being beaten. They're putting their foot on their head. They're keeping them all on their knees, tied up. Those are Christians in Syria in a town filled with religious minorities. We also have this video or screenshot, which includes footage in which the new terrorist government was taking prisoners to their execution. Now, I'll be 100% fair and honest with all of you who are, Al-Qaeda defenders out there, that in this video that I did share, you don't actually see them getting executed, so maybe they're not being executed. I don't know. Maybe they're just being tortured. What I can definitely say is these individuals are prisoners, and they were being, they're being very roughly ushered somewhere in a public setting, presumably to their torture. I don't know. We also have this video which shows Syria's new terrorist government executing immobilized prisoners of war in a Syrian hospital. This was probably the worst video I saw, actually. Out of all the videos I've seen, this was probably the worst one. So there was two Syrian prisoners that were fighting for the Syrian Arab Army, and they were laying there. They were all strapped in with medical devices. Obviously, they had been injured substantially in the day previous, which included the fighting in which they had to basically surrender. They were in a prisoner. They were prisoners of war. They were handcuffed to the bed, completely tied up with all these medical devices, having them on life support. And you had the Al-Qaeda forces come in, talk to them for about 3-4 minutes, and then you heard a few gunshots. They fired, they killed the first guy, and then they went and killed the second guy. So actually now killing immobilized prisoners of war that are handcuffed to their hospital bed. I mean, that is insane, extremely satanic and demonic and evil, and obviously, massive war crimes there. That was one of the worst videos I've ever seen. Just to imagine, you're as humans, we're supposed to help our neighbor. We're supposed to help the sick. We're even, you look at any conventional military that respects basic international law, and the sick, the wounded, they're prisoners of war. They're supposed to be helped. And then, you imprison them after. You don't go and shoot them on their hospital bed. It's insane. What else do we have here? We have Syria's new quote-unquote reformed Al-Qaeda government going full ISIS, filming an execution of innocent Syrians. I'll include a screenshot of that. They also filmed themselves torturing and killing religious minorities in Latakia. Now, this video was 100% real, and this video is very gruesome. You can hear the screams of this man before he was killed, but the video was removed from X, so I'm going to try to find it and include a screenshot here for you, so hopefully you have that. They also tortured civilians, you can see here. They also, let's see here, this is a video of them executing Alawite Syrians. So, for years, they were saying stuff like, we're going to genocide the Alawites are going to deserve this, they've got it coming. So now they're just, executing Alawite Syrian citizens. In this video, which is very gruesome, I haven't posted this yet, but I'll include a screenshot of it. There was an army commander of the Syrian Arab Army who was a high-ranking official, and they took him to the public square, beat him bloody, and I'm not sure if they killed him. I think they killed him as well. He was a high-ranking official. Here you have some very startling videos in which the Al-Qaeda government actually burned the grave of Hafez al-Assad. So, dead man, former president of the country, and, you know, he had his own fights against these Al-Qaeda extremists that I've discussed in detail before, and he was successful in his fights against them. They burned his grave, and then the press secretary for Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, he actually completely crashed out and started like beating his grave with a hammer after it was burned. And then on top of that, some of their men went and actually pissed on his grave. They completely defiled, desecrated the grave. I mean, this is just unthinkable, such animalistic, inhuman behavior that we're seeing from these guys, but that's what they are. I mean, they're literal demons walking on earth, okay? So all of this is happening. Of course, the mainstream media, the Western governments, they are silent, but it's even worse than that. They are doing propaganda for these Al-Qaeda terrorists now. And one of my favorite propaganda pieces that we have actually seen since the fall of Bashar al-Assad came from a woman by the name of Clarissa Ward, who works for CNN, the most reputable news agency on the planet. And Clarissa Ward went to Sednaya prison. Okay, now Sednaya prison is this prison that you hear all the anti-Assad people, and they're like, it had 100,000 prisoners and they were all innocent. It had 1 million prisoners. It had 6 million prisoners. You know, they just start throwing all these crazy numbers. People like to do that with historical events. But anyways, they started throwing all these crazy numbers about like it has 10 billion people locked up in this Sednaya prison. And they go to the prison, and Clarissa Ward, you know, she's this very interesting woman. She's gone from Israel doing her propaganda for the Zionists, and now she's in Syria doing her propaganda for the Zionists there. And they uploaded a video, CNN uploaded a video with Clarissa Ward called "Horrific Photos Have Been Shared from the Inside of Sednaya Prison." So they have this, they have these videos purporting to show the inside of Sednaya prison, but there's a lot of inconsistencies with this story that I immediately noticed, and many people online noticed that, well, it sparked a lot of controversy, okay? So, first of all, I know I'm not a part of the Academy, I'm not a part of the Oscars, you know, nominating process, but I would like to nominate the Syrian man who was actually included. He was the main, you know, actor included in the CNN production outside of Sednaya prison. I would like to formally cast my nomination for this Syrian man to be awarded with an Oscar, an Academy Award in the next year's Academy Awards, because I think he really deserves it. I mean, it wasn't a pitch perfect performance, but it was pretty good. So you've all seen the videos by now. You've seen the photos. I mean, it was just so laughable. I'll show you the picture right now of the guy. He claimed to have been placed in Sednaya prison 3 months prior to CNN coming and saving him. And he comes out of Sednaya prison, and he's got this perfectly groomed beard. You know, his beard, he's got like a, you know, I don't know if it's like a 2 on the razor. He's got this perfectly groomed beard. And he's wearing this very nice jacket. And he's got on these brand new blue jeans. You know, they're nicer than the blue jeans I wear, and he's got these in Sednaya prison, I guess. He comes out, his fingernails. You know, they say he's seeing the sunlight for the first time in 3 months. He comes out of the prison. Oh my God, the sun. And you see his fingernails. His fingernails, it looks like he just went to a fingernail salon and got his fingernails perfectly manicured. He was very clean. His clothes were clean. He had this perfectly groomed beard. Now, I'm not saying that based on this alone, it means it was a fake. I mean, of course it was a fake, but we have other information, of course, that I want to get into. You know, first of all, I mean, the idea that you haven't seen sunlight in 3 months, and then you come out in the sunlight, like it's supposed to be the first time they're filming him seeing the sunlight. And he comes out and his eyes are wide open and he's not blinking. He's not like disoriented because he's seeing the sun for the first time in 3 months. I mean, he didn't even blink. He didn't flinch. It's completely fake. He gazed up to the sky, overjoyed by this newfound freedom. I mean, it's completely fake. If you were in harsh treatment, if you were a detainee in this secret prison held in solitary confinement being tortured for 3 months, you're not going to be clean. You're not going to be well groomed. You're not going to be physically healthy. You're not going to have perfectly new clothes. You're not going to have perfectly healthy body, no injuries, right? No injuries, no signs of torture. It is completely incongruous to the portrayal that you would expect from someone, not just expect, that we know that we would see from someone who's allegedly held in solitary confinement in the pitch dark for 90 days, okay? Now, the other funny thing about this video that no one seemed to pick up on is the man that they saved from this prison. Apparently, he didn't even know Bashar al-Assad had fallen. He didn't even know. When CNN went into the prison cell, he was hiding under a blanket despite gunshots already used to break his cell lock. And so he's like hiding under the blanket thinking that someone is going to come in and torture him again. But someone had already come through and shot the lock open. So like the prison cell was already open, but he was acting like he was still in it, and that they literally just came in seconds after Bashar al-Assad fell. They came and grabbed him from the prison. Okay. Now, this individual's name is Adel Garbal. Adel Garbal. Very real name. Definitely not a fake name. Very real name. Adel Garbal. Now, Adel Garbal, as he says, claimed that he was arrested 3 months earlier for having his phone searched, and he was taken to Damascus. So a very believable story. You know, this is like CNN prime time. You got all the moms and dads across the United States watching, and they're like, oh my God, they just searched his phone and they threw him in a torture cell, pitch black, for 3 months. How could they? Bashar al-Assad's so bad. This is why they had to overthrow him. Assad can't be worse than Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda can't do something like that, right? So here's the deal. There is a little bit of truth to Mr. Garbal's story. He claims to hail from Homs, the city of Homs in Syria. Now, the dialect that he spoke with actually supported this claim. I wouldn't know because I'm not fluent in Arabic, Syrian Arabic, but this is what people have said. OSINT reporters have said this, but we have since learned that his real name is not Adel Garbal. No, that was a fake name. His real name is Salama Muhammad Salama. So, Mr. Muhammad Salama, why did you change your name? Why did you hide from the CNN crew that your name is Salama Muhammad Salama? Oh, no. He's also known as Abu Hamza. It just so happens that Mr. Muhammad Salama was a first lieutenant in the Syrian Air Force intelligence, notorious for his activities in Homs. What sort of activities? Well, residents of the Al-Bayada neighborhood in Homs identified him as frequently stationed at a checkpoint in the area's western interest, infamous for its abuses. Abu Hamza reportedly managed several security checkpoints in Homs and was involved in theft, extortion, and coercing residents into becoming informants. According to locals, his recent incarceration, lasting less than a month, some people claim it was just 3 days, was due to a dispute over profit sharing from extorted funds with a higher ranking officer. Mr. Muhammad Salama actually deactivated his social media accounts. Yes, he had social media. He deactivated his social media accounts and changed his phone number, presumably to erase any evidence of his involvement in armed activities and crimes against his own country. So that's interesting. CNN told us that this guy was being persecuted by the Assad government because they went through his phone, and that he was some martyr, and that they tortured him for 3 months. That Clarissa Ward thought she was going to win some sort of a journalistic award for her reporting going into Sednaya prison. And by the way, she probably still will win that award. But the facts of the matter bear a completely opposite truth. That truth is that this man was actually a part of the Syrian government, well, military intelligence, I guess we'll say, not the government. He was a part of military intelligence, and he was involved in crimes against his own people. And for those crimes against the Syrian people, they put him in prison. So actually, this vindicates Bashar al-Assad, or whatever sort of government bureaucracy was dealing with this issue. This guy was such a criminal in the military intelligence that they had to put him in prison. And then CNN came out and made him seem like an anti-Assad hero. They are trying to make this guy who's committing crimes against the Syrian people and was put in prison for that a hero of the Syrian people. We are living, people say 1984. I mean, this is a perfect example of the complete opposite being true. Everything about this story is fake. He wasn't in prison for 3 months. He wasn't tortured. He wasn't just some innocent civilian that had his phone searched. No, he was an army intelligence committing crimes against the Syrian people. The Assad government put him in prison. He wasn't there for 3 months. He was there for a few days, and he wasn't tortured. Okay. Clarissa Ward, you got a lot of explaining to do. Someone is spreading mismal and disinformation. They love to say that at CNN. Jackson Hinkle spreading mismal and disinformation. No, it seems like you guys are the ones who are spreading a bunch of bullshit lies. Well, okay, you have the torture. This new government is torturing the people. They're desecrating graves. CNN is supporting them by lying on their behalf. And what else do we have? Well, let's move now and talk about the regional relations that are going to be impacted by the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad. Let's talk about Israel. Since the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad, Israel has bombed Syria over 500 times. Now, Israel was waiting for this day for years and years and years, for decades. They were waiting for the day in which they could just rain hellfire down on Syria. Now, I'm seeing some things online that I think are a little bit silly. Some people online are saying, oh my God, no, Israel, don't bomb, don't bomb. Well, to be fair, to be completely unbiased here, of course, Israel is going to blow up stuff that it doesn't, it shouldn't be blowing up in Syria. It has done that. But for the most part, it's very interesting, but Israel has finally learned how to do a targeted strike on military assets. Why is that? Because Israel doesn't fully trust these al-Qaeda terrorists. No one fully trusts them. You should trust them, not at all, but Israel, they have some mixed feelings about this. What they definitely don't want these al-Qaeda terrorists to have is the ability to defend themselves or to launch offensive military operations. If you do that, then you have no problems whatsoever. Okay, and it just so happens that in these 500 plus strikes that Israel has carried out, Israel destroyed Syria's military assets, including their navy, their air force, their air defense network, missile arsenal, military research, development facilities, potentially chemical weapons. There was a very big explosion that occurred in Syria last night as a result of an Israeli bombing. And that was a very big bomb. I don't know. Some people are saying tactical nuke. I don't think it was a tactical nuke. I think that could have been some massive weapons depot, potentially chemical weapons that was bombed. And there it goes. It looks like a nuke almost. Okay. Now, the reason why I think you should, you should be upset, but also not upset by this, because you don't want these guys to have a Navy, chemical weapons, massive weapons depot, Air Force. You don't want them to have that. If you support Iran, you don't want them to have this. If you think Al-Qaeda is a bunch of crazy terrorists, why would you want them to have an Air Force, Navy, missiles, chemical weapons? Why would you want them to have that? It makes no sense. So if you're a defender of the axis of resistance, you shouldn't necessarily be upset by the fact that Al-Qaeda doesn't have these weapons anymore. On the flip side, if you are a supporter of the axis of resistance, Syria, yes, you can be upset that within just a few days, all of the weapons that Syria built up, all of the defenses that Syria built up for decades and decades and decades, from the Soviet Union, from Russia, from Iran, have all been eliminated within the span of a few days. Yes, that's a sad state of affairs. I mean, it's the end of the end. There's no more coming back. There's no way Syria will ever be able to defend itself. But I don't want al-Qaeda to have these weapons. So really, I don't really care that this is happening. I don't at all. Now, the al-Qaeda terrorists that now govern Syria, they've actually said some interesting things because, as you know, Israel's refusing to leave the buffer zone that they violated for the first time in decades, completely violated. They're refusing to leave it. Netanyahu is now saying he plans to build a massive Jewish settlement in the occupied Golan Heights, saying that the region will blossom beautifully under this new Jewish settlement. And they're continuing to move forward and increase the scope of this buffer zone. Now, Syria's al-Qaeda government is actually taking a very interesting approach. For starters, I'll admit this was not the government spokesperson. It was just a random person that was being interviewed, I believe, on Qatari or Turkish TV. But he was some sort of a representative of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. He said, "Dear neighbors and friends from the friendly state of Israel, there will be no extremism. We share passion. We invite Israel to come to Syria and invest." Mr. Mohammed al-Jolani, the leader of Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, has said on not one, not two, but now 3 separate occasions that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham governed Syria will not be starting a war with Israel. Okay? He said that, let me see if I can find it here. He said that we refuse to start a new conflict with Israel. He said that he refuses to condemn Israeli airstrikes on Syria. He is instead calling for the international community to provide diplomatic support for Syria. Because, you know, that worked very well for Bashar al-Assad, calling on the international community for diplomatic support. No, calling on the diplomatic community for international support gets you absolutely squat. Gets you nothing. It gets your country being bombed, invaded, and absolutely defiled. Okay, so they are not serious in their outrage against Israel. I saw there was like a video of some of the random fighters, like cadre of the rank and file of Al-Qaeda. They did a video, they're like, "We go to Jerusalem next, we go to Jerusalem next." And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, they probably are going to Jerusalem next. They're probably going to Jerusalem, Israel next to go pick up their paychecks in person. Because why, you know, it's like, why risk getting it sent by mail? Just go pick it up in person, right? From the Israeli government themselves. Jolani also said, "Syria will not enter a new war with Israel. The country is not ready for another war. Our biggest threat is Hezbollah and Iranian-backed Shia militias in Syria." Okay, so there you go. When it comes to Israel, this new al-Qaeda government is totally not opposed to Israel bombing them, invading them, or doing whatever it wants, eradicating their entire military assets. So there you go. And as for the geopolitical consequences of this new al-Qaeda government in Syria, what do we have? Well, France announced just this week that they're going to be dispatching a diplomatic mission to al-Qaeda govern Syria. I don't know who they're going to be sending. They have plenty of al-Qaeda Syrian terrorists in their country already in France, so maybe they'll just send some of their assets to go to Syria and meet with these new officials. The UK has announced 11 million British pounds in aid for al-Qaeda governed Syria. So the UK is just sending $11 million to a bunch of terrorists. Very interesting. The European Union has said that we've increased our humanitarian aid funding to more than 160 million euros to al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria. And our humanitarian flights will bring food, medicines, and shelter items. So between the UK and the EU, they're sending about $170+ million in aid to al-Qaeda terrorists. Remember, for the last year, they told us, we have to shut down the UNRWA. We have to shut down the United Nations Palestine organizations because terrorists in Palestine are stealing the aid and stealing the money that we're sending them. But the moment that al-Qaeda takes over Syria, the EU and the UK are just flooding flooding al-Qaeda-governed Syria with all this money, all this aid, assuming that the situation is going to end any differently, okay? Now, the United States and the United Kingdom are considering removing Syria's Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, al-Qaeda, from the terrorist lists of the respective nations. They said, you know, it's a process, it's a long process, but we're trying to expedite this process, okay? Now, the most important part here that you all need to understand is how Syria's al-Qaeda government plans to move forward into this new era for the country. Now, if you don't know, Syria, under Hafez al-Assad primarily, but also under Bashar al-Assad, Syria was governed by the Ba'athist Party. Now, the Ba'athist Party claimed to be this, you know, secular socialist government, secular socialist party, and to a certain extent, yes, I mean, it kind of, you know, they tried to do some socialistic things. I don't know if I'd call it, I definitely wouldn't call it socialist, but they did some things, right? For example, Syria, when it came to their biggest industries, when it came to their most vital resources, they nationalized these things. They were state-controlled for the most part. Not entirely, but for the most part. Syria had several state-owned banks. You look at their agricultural sector, which is the biggest sector, that was state-owned. When it came to energy, oil, gas, these were state-owned. At one point, they were considering actually building a nuclear power plant. That would have been state-owned. The manufacturing industry, manufacturing and industry in Syria, primarily state-owned. It employed about, I think, like 18% of the population. So all of the big ticket items in Syria were not entirely, but primarily state-owned. Bashar al-Assad, he did institute a series of reforms, which allowed for privatization of some banks, semi-privatization of certain assets, state assets. But what you have to understand is that if a state controls at least 1/3 of any given asset, the state has de facto control over that asset, okay? You only need 1/3. So in a lot of ways, you know, the biggest resources were state-owned or state-governed, state-controlled to a large extent. This was mostly present during the 1970s. You saw a lot of state ownership in the 1970s. Slowly but surely, that was being chipped away. And then when the dirty war against Syria took place, when the sanctions were imposed, you saw the complete collapse of the country, of the economy. By the end of 2013, the United Nations estimated that total economic damage from the Syrian dirty war was $143 billion. In 2018, the World Bank estimated that about 1/3 of Syria's housing stock and 1/2 of its health and education facilities had been destroyed by the conflict, okay? Now, what does this new al-Qaeda government aim to do? Does it aim to have completely, Islamic economic policies? Does this new government aim to have new, economic policies that will stop any sort of rapacious, parasitic loan programs or investment deals or anything like this? No. The new al-Qaeda government of Syria aims to actually privatize their entire economy and open it up to foreign markets. So that's what this was all about. This was all about stealing the resources of Syria. Syria said, we're going to nationalize, we're going to do state-owned industry, state-owned manufacturing, state-owned oil, public banking, public, resources, oil and gas are going to be public commodities. Is that what we're now seeing maintained under this al-Qaeda government? No, they're saying, Israel, come invest. Turkey, come and invest. Qatar, come. Qatar just announced that they're going to be opening their embassy for the first time there in years. So this was all about opening up Syria so it can be raped and pillaged by Western finance capital. That's all this was about. These al-Qaeda fundamentalists, what's so interesting about them is they're not actually adhering to Islamic law when it comes to how they are going to manage the economy. They are going to allow for parasitic rentierism, these rapacious loan programs, all this sort of stuff. They're going to open it up to the IMF, to the World Bank. They're going to liberalize the economy, privatize the economy. So they don't like, Al-Qaeda says that we're not going to do the whole Islamic law thing for the economy and the people of our country and our most vital assets. But if a woman's not wearing a burqa, then we are going to have big problems. If someone in our country claims to be a religious minority, an Alawite or a Christian, we're going to have big problems. They're not respecting the Islamic law. So really, the whole idea that Al-Qaeda is pursuing the furtherance of Islamic law in Syria, well, they're pursuing Islamic law so much as they are in the realm of surface level, the looks of Islamic law. They want to maintain this sort of facade of Islamic law. But when it comes to the real meat and potatoes, the roots of Syrian civilization, the economy, the assets, the oil beneath the feet of the Syrian people, the agricultural rich regions of Syria, what are we talking about here? They're going to open it up to Soros, IMF, World Bank, all these international agencies of finance capital. That's not Islamic law. It's insane. I see some people on social media, they say like, oh, well, the Idlib region was economically prosperous and they just want to take the same model that they applied in Idlib and apply it to the rest of Syria. Well, guys, what was going on in Idlib? Idlib was flooded by the Turkish markets and it faced, in effect, it faced no sanctions because it was governed by Al-Qaeda. It wasn't governed by Assad. So they had no problems. They had good relations with Turkey because Turkey was supporting the terrorists and still is. So, okay, they had no problems. Now, are the people in Idlib benefiting from these good economic, conditions? Of course not. Of course not. I mean, in Idlib, are the people reaping the benefits of the agricultural products that they steal? Are they reaping the benefits of the oil that they stole from the Syrian people? No. No. International institutions of finance capital are reaping the benefits, but you're not seeing people's standard of living increase dramatically in Idlib. No, of course not. This is all about an operation by the West to overthrow Assad so they could rape and pillage the most vital resources that Syria holds. And now we're seeing it finally play out. So anyways, very interesting stuff here. All stuff that we predicted here on this show for years, by the way. I mean, you can go back to videos of me speaking back in 2020. I was covering this stuff. I'm saying they want to overthrow Assad. They want to put Al-Qaeda extremists in who are going to torture and massacre innocent civilians and religious minorities. The Western governments are going to support them. They already did at the time. The Western mainstream media is going to provide cover for them. When Assad is out, they're going to act like Al-Qaeda are the heroes. And when Assad is out, Al-Qaeda is going to open up the economy, privatize all the assets, and stop the state control of these major industries and resources in the country. So completely correct prediction here that we've had. And I hate to feel vindicated on this matter, but because it's so grim, but that's exactly what we have now. Syria is done. It's over. There's no coming back from this. That's it. Okay? And, well, who allowed this to happen? All of the regional partners allowed this to happen. Here's the last thing I'll say. My good friend George Galloway, he came under a lot of attack this week because he said that he's given up on these Arab countries and their governments, their corrupt governments, and he is 100% correct. You know, what George said is not radical, it's not insane, any person who is looking at what's happening in the region right now and looking at it with two, properly working eyes can understand that, yes, this is the correct position to have. All of these governments have sold out the weakest link of the axis of resistance, causing it to implode. Many of these governments have sold out the Palestinian resistance, the Iranian factions of the resistance in Lebanon, in South Lebanon, and Hezbollah. They're complete sellouts. There's no reason to defend them. It is a lost cause. And George isn't saying that he stops defending, the sovereignty and the rights of the Arab people. He's saying the project of these Arab governments is dead on arrival. There's no reason to defend it. There's no reason to be optimistic about it. There's no reason to assume that Assad is going to come back from Moscow and save the day. There's no reason to assume that the axis of resistance is going to have some fourth quarter, last 30 seconds surge of power and come back with this amazing victory. It's over. Okay? It's over. And George is 100% correct. And anyone who's telling you otherwise right now is huffing on a ton of copium. Now, I don't understand why people are so upset with George for saying this. He doesn't live in the Arab world. He is not Arab. He is working and has worked his entire life on trying to fix his country and stop his country from doing the crimes that it has committed to the entire world, to Russia, to China, to the Arab world, to the Persians, to Latin America, to Africa. He is trying to fix his country and stop them from doing what they're now doing to the Arabs. Okay? He is not Arab. He is British. I am not Arab. I am American. So, really, I don't understand what he said has anything to do with his country. He is trying to fix his country to stop them from doing what they are now doing successfully to the Arab world. And he understands that these Arab governments are pawns and puppets of his government, and there's no reason to root for them or think that they're ever going to flip sides or have some sort of an awakening or do anything good. Okay, so he's 100% correct. And George, I support you 100%. The attacks that you have come under have been just absolutely ridiculous. And it's coming from people who don't understand what you've done for your entire life and what you stand for. You stand for sovereignty. You stand for freedom. You stand for the ability for a people to stand for themselves, to reap the benefits of their own resources, of their own country, rather than allow these countries to be raped and pillaged by foreign transnationals and finance capital on the global stage. And a lot of people right now, very sadly, are cheerleading this or saying it's okay because the problem is going to fix itself. Wake up, it's not. This is the end. Anyways, sorry to end on such a grim note, but we have to be real every once in a while. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I'll see you all back here very soon. On that note, peace out. Have a great rest of your night, and thank you so much for tuning in.